If you were to hear the words Xbox exclusive sci-fi FPS where you play as genetically altered soldiers wearing power armor, you'd probably automatically think of Halo, but today I'm going to be looking at a different game meeting that description, and that is Section 8 Prejudice. This game released in early 2011 as a 360 exclusive, but later got ported to the PS3 and PC, assuming all the info I found is correct, and this was a neat game that I enjoyed. And sorry for my voice being off, dealing with allergies. Anyways, the combat of this FPS is pretty fun, giving you 7 firearms to use, all with different strengths, weaknesses, and possible mods. My personal favorite weapons were probably the assault rifle and the shotgun, but you also had an LMG, a sniper, a pistol, a plasma cannon, and a rocket launcher. But it wasn't very effective against enemy infantry, but it was great against vehicles and automated turrets. You unlock new guns and mods as the game progresses, with an achievement for getting at least 1 kill with every firearm, and you could modify your weapons at resupply stations scattered around the levels, with mods being things like increasing your rate of fire but lowering damage, or increasing damage against infantry but lowering it against turrets. In addition to your selection of guns, you can also hold 2 equipments of your choice, being various explosives, like grenades or a small mortar strike, knives, and repair tools. Now, one thing that irked me a bit was that you couldn't just melee. Like in most shooters, you had to equip the knife in one of your 2 equipment slots and then have it active if you wanted to use it. So if you were in a situation where you wanted lots of grenades, or maybe you want explosives and a repair tool over a blade, tough stuff, you can't melee. This just felt really odd and kind of frustrating, but whatever. But on a positive, you can sometimes pull off sick one-hit melee executions, so a small plus there. Although I was a bit confused as to my vulnerability while doing executions, as sometimes I would take damage from nearby foes mid-execution, and sometimes I would clearly be getting shot and take 0 damage, so I'm not 100% sure how that worked. In addition to all this, you also had 10 perk points that you could distribute among 8 options, being things like increasing your overall weapon damage, max health, regeneration speed, etc. And while I did experiment around with all the perks a little bit, I mostly stuck with more tanky perks, which increased health, armor, and regen speed. Speaking of health, similar to Halo, you have an armor and an HP meter, and your armor takes 100% of damage until it breaks, and then your health starts taking hits, but both your vitality and armor will regenerate by themselves, as long as you can go several seconds without taking damage. There are also a couple other ways to restore lost HP though. Standing near a supply drop will replenish your vitality, and you can also heal yourself with the repair tool. Or you can use the siphon tool or the siphon knife to vampire some health away from your opponents, so you can get a little creative on how you want to heal up. As far as enemy variety goes, this title offers a pretty good selection, with basic and elite foot soldiers who vary in HP and weaponry. Plus, you also fought unmanned turrets, which I mentioned earlier, and you also had giant mechs who moved kinda slow, but could take you out in 1 melee hit, so I would not advise getting too close to them. Now that being said, there are a couple sections in the campaign where you got to play as a mech, and a section where you drove a tank, but both honestly felt kinda underwhelming due to how weak they are, but at least some changes in gameplay were nice. Switching over to talk about boss battles, Section 8 Prejudice had a few of these, which were mostly just beefed up foot soldiers, although the final boss was a bit different, and he had a really dangerous EMP attack, and you had to fight him by lowering his health to stun him, and then ripping out power nodes on his back. That being said, none of the bosses gave me any real trouble on the normal difficulty, and I didn't die once during any of the boss encounters. Moving on to talk about some other parts of combat, Prejudice has some neat features, like having a jetpack you can use whenever you want, as long as it has the battery of course, and enemies also had these, which kinda reminded me of MP matches on Advanced Warfare, with everyone bunny hopping around while using their exosuits. You also had a lock-on system, I guess you could call it, which required a pretty lengthy recharge between uses, but you press down on the right joystick to activate it, and it would make you auto-lock onto a nearby enemy, making it easier for you to shoot them. The last of your neat abilities was the Super Sprint, which is, well, a super sprint, and basically, after normally running in first person for several seconds, the camera turns into third person and you start to run really fast. A cool feature that was useful in some objectives that required you to cover a lot of ground on foot. And I'd say that wraps up all the most important stuff gameplay-wise, although I guess I could add that friendly fire exists in this game, so watch your aim. As for the story, it wasn't anything to write home about. Apparently this is a sequel to a game called Section 8, but I legit thought this was a standalone game until I was doing a bit of research. The story is pretty bare bones and kinda takes a back seat in this game, but you fight a group of bad guys called the Spear, led by a dude named Salvador who's the final boss. That's it really. Apart from the main story, this title has a horde survival mode called Swarm, where you have to defend a location for 15 minutes while it's attacked by a group of progressively tougher enemies. In this mode, and the MP, which I will get into a second, you earn money for getting kills, repairing stuff, and destroying items, which you can use to buy things like turrets or vehicles. This game mode was more fun than I expected it to be, so props there. This title also has a multiplayer mode, and while the online services have been shut down, it's fully playable offline with bots, and it was pure chaotic fun of trying to get kills and complete objectives, and I can imagine it must have been a total blast before the servers closed. The soundtrack was pretty good, and the main menu theme definitely felt heavily Halo inspired, as did a good chunk of this game, although Section 8 sadly doesn't contain a cute blue AI companion to keep you company. The sound effects were good as well, with decent voice actors and good enough graphics for what this game is. The campaign itself was pretty short and took maybe 5-ish hours to beat, but the other game modes definitely kept me around for some extra playtime. My last note before I give this game a final grade. In the main menu for this game, it says that there's another game mode coming soon. This title has been out for over a decade, and there was a massive lawsuit between the developer and the publisher, which resulted in the development company, Timegate Studios, going bankrupt, which leads me to assume we'll never see that fourth game mode. All things being said, I give this Xbox Live Arcade game a 8 out of 10 by my grade scale. I don't remember what I paid for it before the 360 store closed, but I want to say it was under $5, and I certainly got my money's worth. As far as similar games that I can suggest, I'd say any of the Xbox 360 Halo games, Alien Rage, and Bodycount. The last two I have previously reviewed, links will be in the end cards if you want to check them out. A couple side notes apart from my review is that this game requires now delisted DLCs to get all the achievements, which I did not buy, so RIP. Another side note is that this game actually has a couple avatar item awards, but I only unlocked one, which is a neat t-shirt. As a final note, apparently this game has been delisted everywhere except for Humble on PC, although it was only removed off the 360 marketplace because of the store closure. I keep hoping Microsoft will open it someday. Anyways, for the newcomers here, I mostly play, review, and discuss video games with a large focus on zombie and horror titles, but I felt like doing something different today. As far as our Bible verse of the day, I read James 4:17 NIV. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. And that wraps everything for today, folks. I hope y'all enjoyed, and thanks for watching. Feel free to request a game review in the comments, but please note that I will never guarantee a requested video. Feel free to follow me on GameRam if you want hints at upcoming videos and behind-the-scenes stuff. Like always, none of my content is made by AI, and I don't consent to my voice and likeness being modified, altered, or copied by AI in any way. Jesus loves you all, never forget that, peace. The sound effects were good as well, with decent